Hi there, Star Wars collectors, and welcome to another Bossk Bounty video, and welcome to episode 146 of Ask Boss Bounty. This is the weekly Q&A series that drops every Sunday, where I take your questions from the comment section below and do my very best to answer them for you. So if you do have a question for next week's episode, please leave them in the comment section below, and hopefully I'll get round to answering your question. If I didn't get round to answering your question this time, I can only apologise. Please bear with me and try again. Put your question in the comment section below, and hopefully we'll get round to you next week. It's only because I get so many questions that I can't fit them all in, and I have to sort of pick and choose basically, but it doesn't mean your question is bad. So with all that being said, if you happen to enjoy the video, don't forget to drop a like down below because that helps the video and the channel. And before we get on to the first question, I just wanted to show you this. So this is a carbonite block of Bossk. Now this was actually made for me. This is absolutely fantastic. I think they may have even used this Bossk here as like the cast for it. It's really heavy and it's just going to be awesome in my Bossk collection. I want to thank you so much to Ben, and he did write a little note. So he contacted me on Twitter originally and said, I'm going to send you something that you will definitely not have in your collection. And I was like really intrigued to see what that was. And he says, hey Tim, love the channel. As a small thanks for all the great content, I whipped you up a little something that I doubt you have in your collection. There you go. Hope you enjoyed. Cheers, Ben M. Twitter handle Ben Mund or Mund. So thank you so much for that, Ben. I absolutely love this. And when I first opened it, I was blown away with how good this is. This is really, really good. The detail on it is just fantastic the way you've done that. I'd love to be as creative as this, to be able to make this sort of thing by myself. There you go. You can see it lying down like that. There's his hand sticking up and everything. And this will sit very, very proudly in my Bossk cabinet. So thank you so much once again, Ben. It really does blow me away, the generosity of the toy community. The toy community is the best community, and I just want to thank you all for, for watching my videos, for commenting, leaving questions, and even going to the trouble to make things like that. It just blows me away. So thank you so much, my friend. Really put a smile on my face when I opened that. Alright then, so with all that being said, let's get straight on to the first question of the week, and it's from Horror Fan, and he says, question for next week: with Jedi Fallen Order 2, or Jedi Survivor, being released, do you think we could get characters such as the Night Sister Merrin or Cal's Jedi Master in the Vintage Collection or Black Series? So first of all, I would absolutely love them to do the Jedi Master. He's the same race as Zeb from Rebels, I believe, isn't he? He is a pretty cool character. Will they be doing more characters from Jedi Fallen Order 2? So we've already got these three. I've reviewed those on the channel. That was one of my latest videos if you want to go back and watch that if you haven't done that already. They're okay, they're repaints. It's one of those packs that's just repainted to get some army builders out there essentially. And we're also getting Cal Kestis on that Jedi Survivor card, so it'll be interesting to see what we do get in the future. I don't think they're going to leave it there. I think we'll probably get some more characters from there, maybe one of the main villains or something. I don't really know, but I can't say I've heard anything that's coming in the future for Jedi Survivor. I've got to admit that. Nothing on the cards that I've seen, but we can only keep our fingers crossed. If you're into the video games, I'm sure people will be wanting those. Mega Man Media says, love the channel, always enlightening. Question for next week: what do you think the chances are that we'll see an all-new sculpt Jabba with the Return of the Jedi anniversary? With the playset coming out in 2023, a new Jabba and Salacious Crumb would be the icing on the cake. It certainly would. I can't see them doing an all-new sculpt for him. I think if they do release a Jabba the Hutt, it will most likely be using the one that they released with the barge. I don't think they ever said that Jabba was exclusive to the barge or anything like that. I think it's just the Jabba that came with it, right? So there's no reason why they can't use that one, maybe paint him slightly differently, I don't know. But they've also got the one from 2012, I think it was, the Toys R Us exclusive. They could easily use that sculpt as well. So I don't see any reason why they necessarily need to make one with a new sculpt. I think it would be a waste of budget if anything else. But Salacious Crumb, I doubt we'll ever get him on that mini card again, but sure, if they're going to do a Jabba, then he needs to come with the Salacious Crumb. Sidra Seeger says, question for next week: how would you feel about Pre Vizsla or Clone Wars Season 2 Deathwatch Soldier as new TVC figures? A Season 2 Deathwatch would be a very easy repaint from the Mandalorian Super Commando, and I would kill for one, especially since the original animated figure is so rare nowadays. Going to repost this. Hope you don't mind, Bossk. No, that's fine. Repost the questions if I don't get round to them, as I mentioned before. So yeah, Pre Vizsla is definitely one that I would like to see them do in the Vintage Collection, and I think that one could be accomplished pretty easily. And as you said about the Season 2 Death Watch, if that's how they could do it, then great. What I wouldn't want them to do is put them in the main line in place of something else, because I think now we're at that point with these Mandalorian figures that they are, you know, repaints. So why not make them like into a 3-pack or something like that, where, you know, it doesn't affect the sort of mainline schedule. That's kind of what I want. Pre Vizsla, maybe not. Pre Vizsla could possibly be a mainline release, you know. But in terms of like more Death Watch Mandalorians, other types of Mandalorians, I think they need to sort of move those out of the mainline now and allow space for other stuff. Death Metal Rob says, great as always. And my question is, do you think they'll make a Wilro hood for the Vintage Collection? So, well, let's just move Bossk out the way for the time being. So this is Wilro hood here, and from by all accounts, I think this was a bit of a peg warmer when it first came out. And if you're wondering who this guy is, he is the Blink and You'll Miss It character from Empire Strikes Back, in Cloud City, where he's running along with the ice cream maker, that Camtono thing there. Interesting figure. As I said, I think it was a bit of a peg warmer, but no, I don't think that they'll do this one in the Vintage Collection anytime soon. I can't really see that happening. I think, you know, there'd have to be some kind of anniversary or whatever to do with the Empire Strikes Back for it to be released, or some special exclusive or something, like, I don't know, some playset or something. But no, I can't see them doing it. And unfortunately, if you want this figure now, he is really expensive on the secondary market, which is bizarre really, considering, as I said, back in the day he was a bit of a peg warmer. Robert Westwood says, question for next week: why do you think Hasbro has moved away from releasing themed figure waves, e.g. ESB wave, Attack of the Clones, etc., versus the mix match we see these days? And how much do you think that budgeting plays into the dearth of vehicles for the TVC? Thank you as always for the videos and everything you do for the community. Cheers for the question, Robert. Appreciate it, mate. So the first part of your question there, in terms of the themed waves, I think it must have something to do with the fact that there's just so much media for them to pull from these days, and also probably because they don't really sort of want to freeze people out. So if you are not into the Clone Wars whatsoever, you know, if they were to release a Clone Wars only wave of 6 figures, then they're going to sort of alienate a lot of people and maybe not sell as many figures. Whereas if they have like a wave with one from the Mandalorian, one from the Clone Wars, one from Jedi, etc., then perhaps they'll gain a bit more interest that way. So perhaps that's the reason, I don't know. I do remember in the TVC 1.0, when they did the whole Phantom Menace waves, that it almost killed the line, essentially. They peg warmed really badly, so maybe that's in their back of their minds as well. And the second part of your question about the vehicles and the budgeting, yeah, I think it's got a lot to do with the budget. I wouldn't imagine they're cheap to make vehicles, new ones especially. And I think they've got a history of going to clearance at Walmarts and Targets and, you know, Toys R Us when that was around. They just have a history of going into clearance. They don't really make as much money of them. So maybe they're just a bit worried about that. And they're putting all of their money, it seems, into figures at the moment and play sets. It's a bit annoying really, because we haven't had a newly tooled vehicle since the troop transport, I think it was. And then before that, the tank. So it's a bit disappointing. We're getting a newly tooled speeder bike, which is great news. So hopefully things are going to change on that front. Admiral Akbarmush says, 3 times a charm, I hope. Great insights again this week. As always, Mr. Bounty. I'm genuinely curious on your thoughts. Why have there been no Revenge of the Sith card backs at all in TVC 2.0 other than the awful VC 145 clone? So much great new sculpt and repack potential for the Revenge of the Sith card backs, as well as being the most popular prequel by far. Where's the Grievous or Kit Fisto repacks? Newly sculpted Revenge of the Sith Obi-Wan and Anakin, people would go nuts for that. Or Dooku, who is long overdue, would be a nice one on a Revenge of the Sith card. Strange to me, it's almost like they're avoiding it. Cheers, and look forward to the next week as always. So again, I just think it comes down to the massive amount of media that they've got to pull from, and since the Vintage Collection has come back, there just hasn't really been a time to bring those figures out. There's always been a movie or a TV show for them to sort of concentrate on. Also, you know, sprinkle in a few original 96 here and there as well. Original trilogies always important to fans, so I think that's the reason. I think, you know, if you look at Attack of the Clones, for example, We only really had the new Anakin, and I think that was mainly because he was in the Obi-Wan series. And then we had some very strange choices in the repack wave with the peasant Anakin. So we haven't really had a lot from any of the prequels, really. So I don't really think it's any surprise why we haven't had anything from Revenge of the Sith. And I think, you know, for that to happen, it'll have to be on Hasbro's mind. It'll have to be on people's minds. And I think it'll have to wait until the 20th anniversary. Ronan says, hey BB, question for next week. What's your thoughts on a deluxe set where we could get a Cal Kestis and a BD1, all the different lightsaber colours, some other hilts, and maybe a workbench for a nice set? Would be a good way to get a Jedi Fallen Order Cal with some good accessories. My only issue being that people would like him on a card back instead of a deluxe pack, but let me know your thoughts. I think you've just said it right there in the last part of your question there about the card. I think people would want it on the card back. And also I want them to get away from sort of thinking that a deluxe figure is a deluxe figure because it's a figure with a few little extra pieces. I think the only set that we've had that's been called deluxe that could actually really be a deluxe set was the cannon, the tripod cannon. That one for me deserves sort of like the deluxe set, maybe the spider set as well with the Mando. So I'd much prefer it if they just gave us the figure with BD1. He should come with BD1 anyway. I mean, they've done it with the Obi-Wan with the little droid of layers from the Obi-Wan series, so it should come with BD1. And then you could just put an extra few lightsabers in there and, you know, the workbench and everything. I personally don't really need that in my collection. I just need the figure, a few lightsabers and BD1 for a Cal Kestis. So that's my thoughts on it, my friend. Andrew Webster says, hey boss, question for next week. Since Count Dooku will be featured in the Tales of the Jedi animated series, do you think this will push Hasbro to finally release an Attack of the Clones Dooku in the vintage collection? It might do. It might do. It would be really interesting to see actually what they do with the animated series of Tales of the Jedi, whether we get any figures from that whatsoever. I'm sure quite a few people might want a young Dooku, for example, but it may sort of put him on the sort of radar for Hasbro. But then again, I think there's been enough noise in the community in general for a Count Dooku that, you know, if they're not aware that we want that figure already, then there's something wrong, basically, because it gets mentioned a lot in brackets for the SWTVC that they put out. Dooku did very well in that. You know, there's loads of people around the community. Nick, Only One Kenobi, myself, we've all been calling for a Dooku. So hopefully it will happen anyway. Desty says, awesome show, Bossk. As always, great answers to great questions. I'd like to see maybe an Ewok village in some form of modular design similar to the Tantive corridor. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. My question for next week is, do you like gravy on your chips? This comes up a lot, doesn't it, Des? Do I like gravy on my chips? No, is the answer. I think if I'm getting chip shop chips, like fish and chips, then it's got to be ketchup, salt and vinegar all the way. Maybe if I was in a pub or something and I was having a pub lunch with chips, maybe it'll have gravy on. I don't know. But no, just generally ketchup on my chips, my friend. And for everybody in the US that is shocked that I have ketchup or gravy on my chips over here are basically your French fries. So, you know, what you call chips, we call crisps over here. So there you go. Matt Price says, hi Tim, it appears like Hasbro's heading in the right direction with the retro collection with the thicker cardstock and unpunched card backs in the box set release of the first wave. Any thoughts to why the box bounty hunter sets haven't received the thicker cardstock with unpunched tabs? It seems inconsistent on Hasbro's part. Also would like to see the edge weathering go away. Maybe start a campaign. I don't think a campaign is going to get them to stop them doing the edge. I think that's just their thing to sort of, you know, show them apart from the original vintage figures. It's bizarre. I don't like it, but I think that's just the way it is. In terms of the thicker card stock and the unpunched cards, I was incredibly disappointed to see when I reviewed this, the video is on the channel, that the cards in here weren't unpunched, and also they're on the thinner card stock. It is inconsistent, and it's something they need to improve on. The only thing I can say is maybe these were sort of produced in the factories before that 6-pack. I don't know. I can't tell you if that's the case or not, but it seems a bit odd. They come in a box, so they should be unpunched, and they should be on the thicker cardstock. When I took Bossk out, he is really wavy. It's just not good enough, man. Zombie Duck says, here's my question for next week. By my count, there are currently 9 figures from the Mandalorian in the Black series that have not made it to TVC. Grief Karga Season 1, Q90, Cobb Vanth, The Client, New Republic Security Droid, Migs Mayfeld Season 1 and HK87, Trapper Wolf and the Remnant Scout Trooper, which do you think are most likely to be made for the Vintage Collection? Thank you for your time and keep up the great work. Thank you for the question, Zombie. I think the most likely one out of there is probably the Remnant Scout Trooper with speeder bike, probably, because if they're going to be doing an all-new sculpt for the Return of the Jedi version, you can kind of assume that they're going to just release it as the Remnant version. They're not going to waste their money on that one at all. Apart from that, I think possibly Cobb Vanth could be one. You know, maybe they've got some of the armor pieces already from the Mandalorians that we've had. The others, there's some in there that I'd really, really like. I would love Season 1 Migs Mayfeld. I'd love that security droid to go with him. I just can't see it happening at the moment. There's just too much for them to do, and it's really, this is the annoying part of being a collector of the Vintage Collection, that we have to look at the Black Series and see some of the things that they're getting. You know, it irks me. Cody Honey says, question for next week: if you got to pick the next 5 to 10 figures but were told that it had to be characters from the Disney Plus shows, including the Clone Wars Season 7 and Bad Batch, what would be your choices? That is a great question. I would always sort of move towards live action things rather than animated. That's just my personal preference. Although I do love the Clone Wars, I love the Mandalorians that we've been getting from there. I love the clones in general. But I think, you know, when I look at figures that I want, it's, you know, the Inquisitors. So the Grand Inquisitor, for example, the brother and that sister as well that we got in the Black Series. I would love those in the Vintage Collection. Ned B as well is another one. So that's 4 straight away, you know. And then when you look at Andor, there's going to be so many characters that we're not going to be getting that the Black Series are. You can already see some of those exclusives that they're bringing out. The sort of Riot Trooper guy, I'd love him in the Vintage Collection. So I'd always move towards the sort of live action stuff rather than the animated stuff. But yeah, great question, my friend. Reckless Deck says, hi Tim, asking again, do you think Hasbro will release a shrunk down TVC version of the failed Black Series Rancor HasLab? I'd love a TVC sized Rancor with all of that articulation. And do you think it would be a Return of the Jedi or Book of Boba Fett release? Well, first of all, it would be a cool thing for them to do, most definitely. But I just can't see them doing it, really. I think we've got the Rancor from the Legacy Collection. He was repacked into the Black Series 3.75, which we know already that they go back to for figures in the Vintage Collection. So I think if they were ever to do a Rancor for the Vintage Collection, it would probably be that one. Maybe they could add some articulation at the wrists and things like that, possibly. I don't really know. I don't actually have that Rancor loose. It is something that I would like. But yeah, in terms of which packaging would it come out in, I think I would want it to come out in a Return of the Jedi box. I have the original vintage one in a box and it is cool. So that's how I'd like them to do it. Paul Burnell says, hi there, Bossk. With all the new Star Wars media coming out, we're getting shows that focus on some of our favourite characters. Might be an obvious answer, but if Disney come to you and ask you which character you'd like to have in their show, who would you pick and what would the plot be like? Yeah, you think it's an obvious answer because I'm going to pick Bossk. Now, I think with Bossk, I would like him to be in one of the series, but I'd want him just to be a cameo for an episode or something. I wouldn't really want the whole thing like centered around him or anything. I think they missed the opportunity in the Book of Boba Fett when they said, you know, we've got some friends that we can pay to help us, and they ended up getting the Moped Gang instead of real bounty hunters to help them. That was really disappointing, and they could have used, you know, Bossk or Forlom or whoever, you know, as part of that show, and they didn't do it, which is really disappointing. But for me, I want Disney to be a bit more adventurous with it and not fall back to the previous characters, and that's why I'm quite looking forward to the Skeleton Crew show or film. I don't know which one it is. I think it might be a show. That to me looks like it's going to be centered around all new characters set after Return of the Jedi, and that's kind of the sort of direction that I'd like Disney to go in, instead of constantly sort of falling back on legacy characters. You know, think of something new. That's just what I want them to do. So yeah, hope that answers your question. Doug McLeod says, hi Tim, can you see a concerted push to complete the 96 next year? Return of the Jedi anniversary is a perfect time to release a good few that we've not had yet. 88, EV99, Endor Rebel Soldier, Biker Scout, etc. Great channel, keep it up mate, Doug. So I don't know whether it's going to be a concerted effort to complete the 96 necessarily in terms of Return of the Jedi. We've said this before. It's the anniversary of Return of the Jedi. Hasbro haven't been quiet about it. They've even said that they're going to do quite a fair bit about it. I know of at least one figure that's coming that will contribute to the 96 from Return of the Jedi, but that is about it. Apart from that, there's going to be some other cool stuff. So let's hope that some of this gets revealed at PulseCon, and then we can all start getting excited about it. Alright then guys, that's it for this week's episode. Do be sure to check out the channel in the midweek, because I do have a brand new mini-series dropping, which is going to be a collaborative video with a good friend of mine, a familiar face in the collecting YouTube world. So that's pretty cool. That's going to be a mini-series that's going to be going over the next few weeks, and I can't wait to drop the first one in the midweek. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit the notification bell, because then you'll be made aware of when that video and all the other videos drop. I want to thank Ben once again for making and sending me this awesome Bossk. This is one of my favourite things in my collection now. The time that you took to do that for me is, yeah, I'm just so pleased with that. Thank you so much for that. Thank you to my Patreon supporters and channel members. Your support means a great deal to me as always. And also, thank you to the wider community that watch my videos. Thank you so much. It really does mean a lot. So if you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to drop a like down below, and we shall see you on the next one.